Week 8 pen testing. So a little bit about me. My name's Scott. I'm really old, meaning I graduated last year. I was a tech lead last year. I was captain of our CPTC team last year. I'm a hacker. I'm a goon for DEF CON. And I am also Sealandic Nobility. Please hold all questions until the end. And I work for IBM X-Force Red, not to be confused with X-Force from Deadpool. Also, white dogs, very good, better than Sheebs. So, what is a pen test? It's an engagement between two entities. Pretty much, a company will hire you, or you or your company, to say, hey, come hack us. It can be, and I'll go on in a second on types of pen tests. And actually, I'll go there right now. I won't. I'll talk about pen test versus red team. You can tell I'm very prepared for these slides. So the difference between pen testing and red teaming. Pen testing is the blue team knows you're there, they're aware, and a lot of the time they won't stop what you're doing. So I'll be on a test, and the blue team will come over and say, hey, we detected you did this, but they won't stop us because they'll just see it, because they want to see a realistic thing. If they didn't detect what an attacker was doing, what would actually happen? Red teaming, it's a little more different, especially in the real world versus competition red team. The blue team knows you're there and are actively trying to stop you. So before we start, take notes, take notes, take notes. Who here has ever had to go back to the lab to get a screenshot for one of their labs? And if you haven't, you will at some point. Especially net services. I think I came back for every single lab for screenshots for that class. Anything you do like consistently, write it down. I have my own personal checklist whenever I go into an engagement. Do this list of stuff first. I have my own custom parsing scripts for Nmap. Once I have that, run specific attacks on specific ports to catch low-hanging fruit. And, didn't mean to hit that. Automate your testing. Learn how to do a bash one-liner. It's just a for loop, and the syntax is awful because bash, it's bad. It's white space dependent. That's a whole different topic. But learn how to automate your testing. Like I was saying, I have all of my automated things. It makes it way easier. So, like I was saying, we're going to talk about types of pen testing. So sure, there's white box and black box, which you guys probably know what that is. White box, you have full access. You see what everything is. Usually a white box for an application test, you'd have source code too. Black box is, they say, go hack this, and they give you like an application or a network. And you don't know anything about it. You have to figure that all out. So rather than listing like, oh, here's some techniques for everything, if you look, all of those are hyperlinks to resources. So for web app testing, this isn't Web Week. I'm not going to go through SQL injection, CSRF, SSRF, XSS, all that. Those are in the OWASP top 10. Those 3 resources right there. The Web Application Hacker's Handbook is one of the best books. It's pretty much like Web Pen Tester's Bible. The Web Security Academy by Portswigger is something that, Portswigger is the people who put out Burp. They make a very good interactive course you can do. And the same with Pen Tester Labs. They have a bunch of interactive web security courses, but they're also paid versions, but they do have a lot of free stuff. And same thing for mobile application testing. Mobile security framework is a good thing for, especially if you have an Android app, you can decompile all the code and look through it. It's fantastic. But I just found out about this like 2 weeks ago. The OWASP mobile testing guide is one of the best things for mobile testing. It has pretty much step-by-step what you need to do. If you want to do mobile testing, you should look at that guide because it's fantastic. And most tests you're going to have are going to be web app or mobile. Some of them will be other special, like thicker, thin clients. But in reality, most of them will just be normal, like web and mobile applications. So the other type, which is what I specialize in, is network penetration testing. So a subsection of net pen testing is you have internals and externals. So internals, usually it's a major company that, let's say they have 20,000 live hosts. Almost all of them use Active Directory. And once you get domain admin, which is like highest possible privileges on a domain, that's not really your end goal. A lot of times, sure, it'll help you out. You get DA, it'll be great. But you need to actually provide business value for them. So once you get DA, you start pivoting in and looking at certain things. Like if you're doing a test on a bank, you go through and then you're like, oh, hey, here's just a list of people's social security numbers. Here's a list of like W-2s and stuff like that. But external, it's a little different. It's usually not as flashy as internal. You don't get to run all your cool hacker tools as much because they give you a list of IPs and it's a bunch of usually like /24s or 28s. And you just scan through. A lot of it is just looking for default creds. You would not be surprised, or you would actually be very surprised with how often admin actually gets you into things. Like I had it work last week. But for resources for NetPen, it's really hard because to practice in a full Active Directory environment, you can do it on like 2 or 3 boxes. That's not going to replicate a real world environment. You're going to need to spin up 50 to 100 boxes and set it all up in a domain. But no one has the resources to make that thing real. So Pentester Academy is one of the best Active Directory courses that I've found online. Granted, you do have to pay for it. I believe you can get $39 a month is the course or the price for the videos. But the actual like lab time is a little more expensive. But if you're looking for free resources, there's Hack the Box and VulnHub. But one of the things, especially when I was starting out, I had issues with Hack the Box because you just see it, it's like, I don't know what to do. And if you just have no idea what you're doing, it's not really going to help you if you just keep staring at it. So the way I started to learn how to do Hack the Boxes is IPPSec on YouTube has a bunch of walkthroughs for all of his Hack the Box stuff, and they're all fantastic. Then there's VulnHub as well, which Hack the Box, they usually give you VPN and you can connect to a bunch of boxes, where VulnHub, you are just given like an OVA or something, kind of like the demos for every week, and you just see what you can find there. Then there's Linux Privesc binaries. So, like, sure, there's all the domain stuff you can use to Privesc, but if you have sudo access to just a couple binaries, and it's a lot more than you would expect, you can Privesc to root. Like, if you just have sudo access to Nmap, you can Privesc your entire account to root and just have pure code execution because it's weird. So if you look in those Privesc binaries, there's probably 50 to 100 at least, if not more. Now we're going to move on. Those are just the 2 basic types of testing. So just another note on documentation. Take your screenshots. Make sure to include the command like you do for all your classes. Take a screenshot that matters. Don't have a bunch of extra like stuff on the screen and then point like, oh yeah, like out of this entire screen, only that small little server in the top part is the only thing that matters to you. Like, no, you want to see only the things that matter, because when you deliver your report to the client, they're going to be like, why do I have 50 pages of screenshots where only 2 of those pages actually matter? Get the stuff that matters and just use nice screenshots. Also, stay organized, because in a normal setting, if you're doing Hack the Box or VulnHub, it's pretty easy. If you're doing a competition like CPTC, it's not going to be easy. There are usually like 50 to 100 different boxes. If you don't have a clear way you're going to stay organized and way you're going to document, it's going to go south fast. So 2 terms I wanted to find are scope and rules of engagement. So scope is exactly what it sounds like. You're given your list of IPs. These are the IPs you can touch. Don't go out of that. And there are little caveats that like you may be able to expand it at certain points, but that's pretty much all it is. Rules of engagement is also, some people are like, oh, you can pretty much do whatever you want on our network, just don't, like, if we have a mainframe, don't break the mainframe, because if that goes down, we're screwed. And get it in writing, especially because there are other types of pen tests I didn't mention, like physical pen tests. If you are paid to like break into a company, make sure you get all of what you're doing in writing. Because if someone comes up to you and be like, hey, why are you here? And it's like a security guard, if you don't have that in writing, it's not going to be a fun time. And like I was saying on scope, never go out of scope. And if for some reason you accidentally went out of scope, immediately tell the client and be like, hey, I did these things on this box. Let them know that it wasn't a real attacker trying to do this, just so they're aware. And then if you really think scope should be expanded, let the client know. Sometimes a client may not understand that if they put you on one subnet for their environment of 30,000 hosts, and you only have access to that one subnet, they're not going to get a realistic pen test. So you may want to consider when you're talking about scope, hey, maybe we should expand this just to be able to get a more realistic sense of your security. So now we're going to talk about OSINT, which is open source intelligence. So pretty much what that means is people share too much on social media, and you can get whatever you want from there. I think a couple weeks ago, Will Etherly, the lead of RVAPS, gave a pretty decent talk on OSINT, talking about when his credit card was hacked, and I was helping him out with this. We were able to find everything out about this guy. But from Facebook, you can get stuff like people's, like what their card looks like to scan in, so you can make your own duplicate card. GitHub, source code. Twitter, people like to tell a lot about their company on Twitter for some reason. Same with Reddit. LinkedIn can have some cool stuff. Like, there's a crazy amount of stuff you can get with that. And this might be blocked by like that chair or something. But who knows what Shodan is? Pokemon Showdown? Yeah, that's it. No. Shodan. Pokemon, not Pokemon Showdown. So Shodan is a program that indexes a bunch of publicly facing resources, and it also does some vuln scanning as well. That one's a little more sketchy on if it's, I don't know the legality. I am not a lawyer. But Shodan's an interesting tool. If you're interested in OSINT, I think you should take a look into it. Then there's some other things. So Google Dorking is amazing, and also I use cheat sheets for Google Dorking. I don't remember it all. There are crazy things you can do. You can specify, like, if you only want to find PDF files, or you only want to find like Excel sheets, especially Excel sheets, because people don't realize what they're putting online a lot of the time. So if you search a company and you search for just their Excel sheet, you may find out that for some reason they put a document that just had information about like their company's network just on there, which I've seen before. So then there's a bunch of OSINT tools. SSL Dumpster, that does some SSL search subdomain enumeration. NSLookup and Dig, they're both some DNS tools. I don't remember what Maltego is off the top of my head. The Harvester as well, that is like a catch-all. It pretty much goes out and will find a ton of stuff. Like these tools, I'm not going to go super in depth on the tools, because that's not what this is. It's not just a tool talk on 100 different pen test things. These are for reference, so you can go back and look up these tools. I'm pretty sure most of these are on GitHub, if not all of them. So scanning and enumeration. I'm going to talk about Nmap for one slide. It's amazing, but we don't need that much on it. So pretty much, we have just some really common ports or common flags that I use. Nmap is a network mapper. So T3, that means the timing template speed. The default, when you use Nmap, it sends a certain amount of packets at a certain speed. You can change that anywhere from T5 if you don't care and you just want to blast a box with thousands and thousands of packets, all the way down to T0, which starts to be very hard to detect, but it's also way slower to run. SV is fantastic. It does a bunch of banner grabbing and gets the service versions. By default, Nmap scans only TCP ports. You can do a UDP scan, and it needs root privileges on your box usually too. But for UDP scans, it will take a lot longer because of the whole like UDP doesn't give a response back right away. So if you want your UDP scans to not take forever, set a realistic timeout on them as well. A lot of boxes will just block pings on it. Like if they see anyone pinging, they'll be like, oh no, we won't respond. So if you do TAC PN, that disables that. You can specify ports. You can do, Nmap has its own scripting engine. So You can pull from a bunch of their scripts. TAC-SC by default does all of the scripts. You usually don't want to do that. And IL, you can just put in a list of IPs. Mike?
Small comment as well. Something that's interesting is a lot of PIM solutions that currently exist will actually, the default for Nmap is going to be a send stealth scan, which is TAC lowercase s, TAC uppercase s. And a lot of PMs that came recently will actually detect it without something like that. So switching up to transit scan, specifically some of the default will help with your scanning and measures.
Yep. Yeah. And so that's Mike. That's from, is Ingressive a sponsor? Yeah. Yeah. That's Mike. He's a previous alumni who works for Ingressive now, which is also one of our sponsors. So also, just to let you know, all of the memes are courtesy of your head of education. So more steps to pen test. So there's some enumeration. When you're finding a domain controller on a network that's huge, a lot of people, well, normally a lot of people will just scan right now, like in a college setting where you don't have a huge environment. You're like, oh, the domain controller is the one that just has all of the crazy high Kerberos ports open, which is usually true too. But you can just query DNS records and actually just pull, like using that command right there, that will just give you a list of all of the domain controllers right away. Another tool, and for this enumeration, that's all specifically focused on Active Directory. Bloodhound is a tool that you give it, it runs some PowerShell, and it will give you back some of the best formatting for Active Directory enumeration, as well as enumerating all the trust between forests and everything. It is an amazing tool that I use on every single test.
One note about Bloodhound, if the company has a halfway decent SIM setup, it will set off all the alarms.
Yeah, there are ways to get around that, but like, yeah, running default Bloodhound stuff will definitely get caught. And there was also a talk at ThoughtCon 2018, and that has tons of stuff about Active Directory enumeration. It links to that right there. I'd suggest if you have any interest in pen testing, look at those slides because they are amazing. And then some vulnerability scanners, which I'll talk about the reliability of them later. It's just a list again: Nessus, OpenVAS, Nikto, SSL scan. Kind of a noom for Linux. It's not really. So yeah, we're going to talk about analysis now. So low-hanging fruit. So what that means, it's the easy things to exploit. Like if you see FTP, you're going to think, oh, I want to try anonymous FTP. You see SMB, or you see 445, which is like SMB or Samba. You want to try to see if they have null sessions and stuff like that. It's just going for the really basic things that are probably just, oh yeah, we never did anything, especially default creds. So yeah, going back to examples, you have the common service misconfigurations like anonymous FTP, default credentials, people who haven't updated their box in so long that vuln MS08 67 that you run in CSec 101, it actually will work on their network. Also, security scanners are really good at catching that low-hanging fruit. They will provide a lot of false positives too. I've used Nessus before on a large environment. It detected Eternal Blue on 60 or 70 hosts, but in reality, I think only 2 were vulnerable. So out of that scanning you have from your vulnerability scanners, go through and verify what's actually there, because a lot of the times they can't be perfect. So now, you're starting to have all of your information. You're really starting to go through it. You're thinking, all right, now, for OSINT, what's the useful stuff that I've found? Like, did they upload any keys? Did we get any, from Google Dork, can we get any information about their work infrastructure? Any possible passwords? You'd be surprised at how many people, because they have to change their passwords quarterly, will change their passwords to, let's see, it's fall 2019 would probably be one of the most common passwords right now. If you spray that across an environment, odds are you'll get a couple of accounts that have that, because they had to change their password for fall. So just a good way to remember, fall 2019. If they have any GitHub, free source code, and contact info, which can be good for phishing, which I'm not covering in this talk at all. And then just any other leaked information. They may have some publicly facing stuff that they shouldn't have publicly facing. Scanning and enumeration, do they have FTP? Do they have those outdated services? Any other low-hanging fruit? What are on the web servers they have? The web servers are usually a really good way to get in. And are there any, is there any verbose output, file disclosure, anything like that, where you could utilize some of the stuff you learned from OWASP Top 10 and the other generic web vulnerabilities? So now, exploitation. You already have, if you do the previous steps right, you go through your scanning and enumeration, you do that well, and you analyze all your stuff, and you analyze it well, you know which things you're going to go after. But the whole point is, and I do have this saying hack intentionally. This is not me just forgetting to go on a slide. If you have all of that prereq stuff done, it shouldn't be that hard to now figure out, OK, now here's what I do. You just need to know, once you analyze all your stuff, going through all these lists, how do I exploit each of these things? This is not a talk on going into specific exploits of, oh, due to an old version of SSH, you can send a malformed timing attack to get a username from them. That's not what this is. It's you've seen the vulns, or you've seen what could possibly be the vulns. Now you have a checklist. Go through your checklist and test what things actually work. So then we come to cleanup. And usually for pen testing, ideally you don't want to actually touch disk at all. So you don't want to have a lot of persistence or anything like that. But every so often you'll need to be able to get into boxes. So make sure you should either remove your all your persistence, you made some web shells, you made some other reverse shells. Make sure to go through, clean up all of those. And if you can't actually go through and clean it up, make sure to mark somewhere in your documentation that, hey, I did this on this box at this time, and this is where the file should be, and here's how to delete it. You want to be very specific on that. Any vulnerability you have, make sure you have those screenshots, and make sure you have all of the information you need, and you understand them. If you find a vulnerability, just saying oh, anonymous FTP, cool. And you don't go through and then say, hey, wait a minute, I need to explain. The way to fix this is you go into the configuration file and you just change the thing that says anonymous _ enable from yes to no. You just actually explain the things on a really technical level, because the people who are going to be reading your findings will understand that as well. Or hopefully they will. So now reporting. Like I just said, you find all those vulnerabilities. You've got to be able to convey them. If you did some leet hacksaw way and broke your way in, if you can't tell the client how you did it in a good way, the client's just going to be yeah, I don't believe you. We can't reproduce it. Steps to reproduce are super important too. If your client can't reproduce your vulnerability, they might not believe it's actually there, because they have to go through and verify, does this actually work? Cool, then you go through and actually do it. Because at the end of the day, the company is hiring you to give them a service, and what you're providing them is not the test. You're providing them the report that has the list of all of the things that you just did. There are multiple aspects. The two main parts are the executive summary and the findings that I've spoken a little bit. I've spoken a lot more about the findings. The executive summary is the CEO, or a CEO, a CISO, whoever, some C-suite, does not have time to read a 60, 70-page report. They have time to read one page and get a super high-level overview. And that's what you need to do. You need to be able to boil down 70 pages of super technical findings to something that anyone in a C-suite can understand. And usually, it's 1, maybe 2 pages. But ideally, you want to keep it around 1 page. And it's hard. And you also want to be able to go through and tell, for the findings in your summary of the test, here is the order you should do things in. You should fix this, then this, then this. And when you're reporting your findings too, specify this is an easy fix. This will take you 2 seconds to fix. Especially for the high vulnerabilities too, you want to specify how hard is it to fix these vulnerabilities? Because like some of these highs could be like, oh yeah, because you had default creds for this account, or like a password of fall 2019 on one of your domain admins, I just got in. So if they just change that, that blocks off the entire vulnerability, and it's like, this will take you 2 seconds. Do this one first. But yeah, so there's more. Also, he finally caught the server. We thought it was going to hit the ground, but it didn't. So if you want to learn more, every week-ish, there's a club, the RIT Vulnerability Assessment and Penetration Testing Interest Group, RVAPT. They learn a lot of cool stuff. They have technical demos. And we actually have Mike up there used to run it. And now Will, who I don't think is here. Oh yeah, you made it, didn't you? 2 alumni up there were the people who started doing that. Yeah. Yeah, there's a workplace group for it too. Join that. Also, reach out to anyone on the CPTC team. I don't think any of them are there because they're doing some last-minute prep right now. But we actually do have some CPTC members who qualified for nationals that are here right now, which if you guys want to just raise your hands. They're from RIT Dubai, and they flew in to compete this weekend. Yeah. Yeah, tryouts for CPTC will be sometime next year. You figure that out. If anyone has any questions at all, feel free to ping me on Workplace. I can also answer any questions now if anyone has any. And if you have meme questions, don't ask them. I'll answer those off stream. No? Cool. Thanks, guys.